Have you ever heard the old stories? The ones your parents tell you to keep you from wandering too far. They talk about a place at the edge of the world, a place where the land ends and a giant wall of ice begins. It stretches higher than any skyscraper, gleaming under the pale moon. Locals say it's not just ice. They say it's magic. They say it hums with a strange energy, a low thrumming sound you can feel in your teeth if you get too close. It's a sound that seems to whisper secrets. Secrets of things hidden on the other side. They call it the Frostfang barrier, or sometimes the Whispering Wall. Most people laugh it off. A big wall of ice. Sounds like Antarctica, they say. Nothing special, but the old-timers, the ones with wrinkles as deep as canyons, they know better. They've seen things. Strange lights dancing on top of the wall late at night, like colorful ghosts having a party. They've heard sounds that aren't just the wind. Sometimes it sounds like music, a faint, elegant melody played on a piano. Other times it sounds like laughter, cold and sharp. The whispers say the wall protects something, or maybe it keeps something locked in. My town, North's End, sits right in the shadow of that wall. We're used to it. It's just a big, cold landmark that blocks the view. But you can't escape the stories. Every kid in town has a theory about what's behind it. Some say it's a lost world of dinosaurs frozen in time. Others think it's a secret government base where they test weird gadgets. But the spookiest story, the one that gives you goosebumps even on a hot day, is about the family that lives back there. A family nobody has ever seen. A family with a very old, very strange name. The legend says the wall wasn't built to keep people out. It was built to give a very special family some privacy. And you have to wonder what kind of family needs a magical ice wall that touches the sky just to be left alone. What secrets are they hiding that are so important? The whispers say they are watchers, guardians. They say they've been there for centuries, living in a world of their own just beyond our reach. And sometimes, just sometimes, they come out to visit. You just have to know where to look, and you have to be very, very brave. The family had a name that was spoken only in hushed tones in the darkest corners of old libraries, the Rothschilds. In our world, the name was linked to stories of immense wealth and power, of banks and castles and secrets that spanned generations. But the real story was far stranger, far more chilling. The Rothschilds weren't just rich, they weren't just powerful, they were vampires, and not the scary monster in a coffin kind. They were elegant, smart, and incredibly secretive. They had lived for centuries, watching the world change from the comfort of their hidden sanctuary. Imagine a family dinner where everyone is hundreds of years old. That was life for the Rothschilds. There was Baron von Rothschild, the patriarch, with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of 1,000 history books. His wife, the Baroness, moved with a silent grace, her laughter sounding like tiny, tinkling bells. Their children, though they looked like teenagers, had seen empires rise and fall. They spent their nights reading ancient texts, practicing sword fighting in grand halls, and tending to gardens where the roses bloomed the color of deep, dark rubies. They were a family bound by an ancient pact and an even more ancient thirst. They didn't drink blood from people, not anymore. That was considered terribly old-fashioned and messy. Instead, they had perfected a synthetic crimson nectar, a shimmering liquid that tasted like pomegranates and held the essence of life. It gave them their strength, their speed, and their eternal youth. They lived by a strict code: never harm a human, never reveal their true nature, and never, ever allow anyone from the outside world to cross the Frostfang barrier. Their secrecy was their greatest treasure, more valuable than any gold or jewels they possessed in their vast vaults. Their existence was a delicate balance. They loved their hidden world, their peaceful, endless lives. But they were also endlessly curious about the human world they had left behind. They watched our movies, listened to our music, and followed our strange fashions with a mixture of amusement and fascination. They saw humanity as a chaotic, beautiful, and fragile species. A species they were sworn to protect from the shadows, ensuring the world kept spinning without ever knowing who was helping to keep it steady. Their biggest secret wasn't just that they were vampires. It was that they were the unseen guardians of a world that didn't even know they existed. What was it like behind the ice wall? Forget everything you think you know. It wasn't a frozen wasteland. The moment you stepped through the shimmering, invisible gate in the ice, you entered a world bathed in a soft, perpetual twilight. The sky wasn't blue, but a swirling canvas of deep purple and indigo, dotted with stars that shone brighter than any diamond. The source of light was the wall itself. The massive Frostfang barrier absorbed moonlight and starlight, then radiated it back into their world, creating a cool, ethereal glow that made everything look magical and mysterious. The Rothschild estate, known as Villa Argenta, was a breathtaking sight. It was a sprawling castle made not of stone but of a polished obsidian-like rock that seemed to drink the light. Towers spiraled into the violet sky, connected by delicate bridges of spun crystal. Fountains flowed not with water but with the shimmering crimson nectar that sustained them, filling the air with a sweet, fruity scent. The gardens were magnificent, filled with plants that didn't exist in the human world. There were glowing moon orchids, shadow ferns that whispered when you walked by, and the famous crimson roses that were the family's emblem. Life was anything but boring. The younger Rothschilds, like Caspian and his sister Elara, spent their days, or rather, their nights, in pursuits that would make any human kid jealous. They practiced flying, leaping from the highest towers and gliding on the strange air currents of their world. They had races on the back of sleek, shadowy beasts that resembled panthers with wings. Their library was a labyrinth of shelves holding books from every era of human history, as well as scrolls containing vampire lore and magic. They were scholars, adventurers, and artists, filling their endless time with knowledge and thrills. But it was also a life of profound responsibility. Every member of the family had a role. Some were historians chronicling the events of the human world, others were scientists working to improve their nectar and study the unique properties of their hidden realm. And some were sentinels, who patrolled the perimeter of the Frostfang barrier, ensuring its magic remained strong and its existence a secret. They were the keepers of a delicate balance, a hidden society that thrived on order, elegance, and the shared understanding that their world's survival depended entirely on staying hidden from our own. How could a family of ancient vampires keep up with the modern world? Simple. They visited. Under the cloak of the deepest night, when the human world was fast asleep, the Rothschilds would sometimes cross the barrier. They had a special hidden passage, a shimmering doorway that could open anywhere on Earth, as long as it was dark. One moment they were in their crystal castle, and the next they could be standing in a deserted alley in Paris, or on a quiet moonlit beach in Japan. They moved like ghosts, silent and unseen. These weren't trips for fun, not usually. They were missions. The Baron might need a rare book that only existed in a single, heavily guarded library. The Baroness might want to study the latest trends in art, observing new paintings in a closed museum. The younger ones, Caspian and Elara, often had the most interesting tasks. They were sent to observe, to blend in. They would slip into late-night concerts to understand new music or watch city life from the tops of skyscrapers, feeling the pulse of a world that was so different from their own. They wore modern clothes, learned the latest slang, and became perfect chameleons. Their vampire abilities made them the ultimate spies. They could move faster than the human eye could follow. They could hear a whisper from a block away. They could persuade people with just a glance, making a security guard suddenly feel the need to go check a different hallway, or a night watchman forget he ever saw a flicker of movement in the shadows. They gathered information, not for evil purposes, but to stay informed. To understand the world they secretly helped to protect. They were the silent observers, the footnotes in history that no one ever knew to write down. But there was always a risk. The human world was unpredictable. A sudden camera flash, an unexpected late-night jogger, a security system that was more advanced than they anticipated. Any of these things could lead to exposure. They had strict rules for these excursions. Never speak unless necessary, never leave a trace, and be back behind the wall before the first light of dawn. The sun wouldn't kill them, not like in the old movies, but it would weaken them terribly. Their nightly visits were a thrilling, dangerous dance on the edge of discovery, and one night someone was finally watching back. His name was Leo, and he was probably the most curious 12-year-old in the entire town of North's End. While other kids were playing video games, Leo was reading books about local legends and unsolved mysteries. His bedroom walls were covered with maps of the area, with the Frostfang barrier circled in red marker. He didn't believe the silly stories about dinosaurs or aliens, but he felt deep in his gut that the wall was more than just a big chunk of ice. He spent his evenings with his dad's old binoculars, perched in his attic window just watching the wall, waiting. One cold Tuesday night, something happened. It was almost midnight, long after his parents thought he was asleep. He was scanning the base of the wall just as he did every night when he saw it. A flicker, not on top of the wall but near the bottom. It was a faint shimmering light, like heat rising from a road on a summer day. It pulsed softly, a blue-white glow that was almost invisible against the ice. His heart started pounding. This was different. This wasn't a reflection. This was a light coming from inside the wall. He grabbed his coat and his heavy-duty flashlight, his mind racing. He had to get a closer look. Sneaking out of his house was easy. He'd practiced it before for less important adventures, like trying to find the legendary giant badger of North's End Woods. He ran through the quiet, frozen streets, his breath puffing out in white clouds. The closer he got to the wall, the stronger the feeling became, that low humming vibration the old-timers talked about. It buzzed in his boots and made the fillings in his teeth ache. When he finally reached the spot he'd seen from his window, he couldn't believe his eyes. There, in the impossibly smooth surface of the ice, was a crack. It wasn't a normal crack. It was a perfect vertical line, glowing with that strange inner light. It looked like a doorway made of pure energy. As he stared, mesmerized, the light intensified, and the crack widened. He could see through it. He saw a flash of a purple sky. He saw the spire of a black castle. And then, he saw two figures step out. They looked like teenagers, dressed in sleek dark clothes. And they were moving toward his world. Leo ducked behind a snow-covered boulder, his heart hammering against his ribs. He had found the secret. From his hiding spot, Leo watched, barely daring to breathe. The two figures, a boy and a girl, paused for a moment after stepping out of the glowing crack. They looked around, their movements sharp and alert, like deer testing the air for danger. The boy, Caspian, was tall and had dark wavy hair. The girl, Elara, was graceful, with long silver blonde hair that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. They spoke to each other in a language Leo had never heard, soft and melodic. Then, in a blink, they sped off into the night, moving so fast they were just blurs against the snow. Leo was stunned. No human could move like that. Overwhelmed by a wave of curiosity that was stronger than his fear, Leo did something incredibly brave, or incredibly foolish. He waited until the two figures were gone, and then he crept out from behind the boulder. The glowing crack in the ice was still there, humming with that weird energy. It was like a door left ajar. He hesitated for only a second. This was the discovery of a lifetime. He had to know what was on the other side. Taking a deep breath, he squeezed through the shimmering gap. The air felt strange, like stepping through a curtain of cool, tingling static. The world he entered was astonishing. He was standing in a forest of glowing crystalline trees. The ground was soft like moss, and overhead the sky was a mesmerizing swirl of deep violet and indigo, filled with countless glittering stars. In the distance, he could see the impossible black castle, its towers reaching towards the heavens. The air was sweet with the scent of strange flowers and fruit. It was beautiful, but it was also eerie, a silent twilight world that felt ancient and powerful. He knew with absolute certainty that he was the first human to ever see this place. He didn't wander far. He was smart enough to know that would be a bad idea. He stayed near the entrance, his mind trying to process it all. A hidden world, a magical castle, people who could move faster than cars. What did it all mean? Who were the Rothschilds, really? As he stood there, lost in wonder, he heard a sound behind him, a soft, musical voice. "You are not supposed to be here." Leo spun around. It was Elara, the girl with the silver blonde hair. She was standing right there, her eyes, a startling shade of crimson, fixed on him with a look of pure shock. Leo froze, his flashlight dropping from his numb fingers and clattering on the crystal-like ground. Elara didn't move closer. Her expression wasn't angry, but it was intensely serious. Behind her, Caspian appeared out of the shadows, his eyes also glowing with that same unsettling crimson color. "How did you get in here?" he asked, his voice low and steady, but with an edge of disbelief. Leo couldn't speak. His throat felt like it was full of cotton. He just pointed a trembling finger back toward the shimmering crack in the reality he'd just stepped through. Elara exchanged a look with her brother. This was bad. This was a disaster. Their family's most important rule, the one that had kept them safe for 1,000 years, had just been broken. But when she looked at Leo, she didn't see a threat. She saw a small, terrified, and incredibly curious boy. "You're not going to hurt me, are you?" Leo finally managed to whisper, his voice shaking. Ilara offered a small, reassuring smile. "We don't hurt humans," she said softly. "But you have seen something no human was ever meant to see. We need to take you to our father." They led him through the glowing forest toward the Black Castle. Leo walked between them, feeling like he was in the wildest dream he'd ever had. They entered Villa Argenta, and his jaw dropped. The inside was even more amazing than the outside. Grand halls with high, vaulted ceilings, libraries with books stacked to the roof, and portraits of stern-faced people who all seemed to have the same piercing eyes. They brought him to a large, circular room where Baron von Rothschild was studying a celestial map projected in the air. He turned as they entered, and his ancient, wise eyes fell upon Leo. The Baron listened patiently as Ilara and Caspian explained what had happened. He looked at Leo not with anger, but with a deep, weary sadness. "For centuries we have kept our world hidden," the Baron said, his voice echoing slightly in the vast room. "We are the Watchers, the Guardians. We are what your legends call vampires. We live apart to maintain the balance, to protect your world as much as our own." He explained everything. Their long lives, their need for the crimson nectar, and their secret excursions into the human world. Leo listened, his fear slowly being replaced by a sense of awe. The spooky legend of North's End was real, and it was so much bigger than he ever imagined. "Now you know our secret," Baron von Rothschild said, his gaze heavy. "The biggest secret in the world." Leo sat in a large ornate chair that made him feel even smaller. The entire Rothschild family had gathered in the hall now, their silent, curious stares fixed on him. They weren't scary, he realized. They were just different. They looked worried. "The knowledge you now possess is a heavy burden," the Baroness added, her voice like soft velvet. "If the world were to learn of us, it would cause panic, fear. Humans would come with their armies and their science. They would try to destroy what they do not understand. Our peace would be shattered. Your world's peace would be shattered." Leo looked from the Baron to Ilara, who was standing nearby, watching him with a hopeful expression. He thought about what would happen if he went home and told everyone. No one would believe him at first. They'd say he was making it up, that he had an overactive imagination. But what if he could get proof? A photo, a piece of the crystal from the forest? The story would be on every news channel in the world. Scientists, soldiers, and reporters would swarm North's End. They would tear the Frostfang barrier apart. This beautiful, strange, and peaceful world would be invaded. He imagined the chaos, the fear. He had always wanted to make a big discovery, to be famous like the explorers he read about in books. But this was different. This wasn't discovering an old ruin or a new species of beetle. This was a discovery that could destroy a whole civilization. A civilization that, from what the Baron said, had been secretly helping humanity all along. Was his desire to be known more important than their right to exist? More important than keeping the world safe from a panic that could lead to war? The weight of the choice pressed down on him, heavier than any backpack he'd ever carried. Caspian stepped forward. "We could make you forget," he said quietly. "My father has the power. He could wipe this night from your memory. You would wake up in your bed, thinking it was all just a strange dream. It would be safer for everyone." Leo looked up, startled. The idea was tempting, to just forget everything and go back to being a normal kid who just wondered about the ice wall. No burden, no heavy secret. But another part of him rebelled against the idea. To have seen something so incredible, so magical, and then to have it erased, it felt wrong. It felt like giving up a piece of himself. Leo looked at the Baron, then at Ilara and Caspian, and then at the rest of the silent, waiting family. The offer to erase his memory hung in the air, a tempting escape route. He could go back to his simple life, and this incredible secret world would be safe. But the memory felt like a treasure now, a precious, fragile thing that belonged to him. He had earned it with his curiosity, his bravery, and his foolishness. To give it up felt like a betrayal of the very spirit that had led him here. He finally understood that some secrets were not meant to be shared with the world, but that didn't mean they had to be forgotten. "No," Leo said, his voice surprisingly firm. "Don't make me forget." The Baron raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise in his ancient eyes. "I won't tell anyone," Leo continued, standing up from the chair. I promise, I understand now. Your secret is safe with me, but I want to remember. I want to know that this place, that all of you are real. He looked directly at Ilara. Knowing the world has magic in it, even if I can't see it, makes the world better. A slow smile spread across Ilara's face. Caspian looked impressed. Baron von Rothschild studied the small human boy for a long moment. He saw no deceit in Leo's eyes, only sincerity and a newfound maturity. He saw the heart of a true guardian. A secret is safest when it is kept by choice, not by force, the Baron said, a hint of admiration in his voice. Very well, Leo. You may keep your memory, but with it you accept a responsibility. You are now a keeper of the secret too, a friend of the House of Rothschild. He extended a hand, and Leo, filled with a sense of pride and importance, shook it. The Baron's hand was cool, but his grip was firm and reassuring. Ilara and Caspian walked Leo back to the glowing gateway. Does this mean I can't ever come back? Leo asked, a little sadly. Secrets are funny things, Ilara replied with a mysterious smile. Now that you're a part of it, who knows what might happen? Just keep watching the wall. With a final wave, Leo stepped back through the crack and into the cold night of his own world. The glowing line sealed itself, leaving only a smooth, unbroken wall of ice. He went home, his mind buzzing not with fear, but with wonder. He had discovered the world's biggest secret, and he learned that true bravery wasn't about shouting your discoveries from the rooftops. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is to keep a promise and protect the magic that others aren't ready to see. Please like and subscribe. We adore you listeners.